want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us for today's paid family leave webinar for employees. I'm Adam Rossi from the Communication Outreach Unit at the Workers' Compensation Board. Joining me today is Courtney Valley from our Office of General Counsel. Today we will provide an overview of New York State's paid family leave benefit, including updates for 2024, some important information regarding COVID-19, as well as resources to help you if you plan on taking paid family leave. I mentioned a few minutes ago, we will be using the chat feature to take your questions today. So you may enter your questions at any time throughout the presentation in the chat box, which is located on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. We will wait till the end of the presentation to answer the questions, but again, at any point, if you have a question, feel free to just type it in the chat box. Courtney will answer as many of your questions as she can, but if you have questions that we don't get to today, or if you think of something after the session ends, we will be providing you with resources at the end of the presentation. Also, I want to point out that your name and email were given to us when you signed in today. However, if you have a specific topic or question you'd like to discuss more deeply with the board, please feel free to share that topic along with your contact information in the chat box so that the appropriate board staff can follow up with you. We do have the chat settings set so that only panelists can see the questions or comments that come in, so you do not have to worry about others seeing your personal information. So to get started, again, I want to welcome you all, and we will be sharing some important information for employees regarding New York's paid family leave today. Since its implementation in 2018, paid family leave benefits have been significantly enhanced to further improve the lives of working New Yorkers and their families, including providing more time off, more uses for paid family leave, and more financial security. In today's session, we'll provide an overview of New York's paid family leave and how it works, including the uses, wage and time off benefits, employee contributions, eligibility, and how you request paid family leave. We will also review 2023 benefit and contribution information, go over what's coming in 2024, review some information related to FMLA and COVID-19 quarantine leave, and as I mentioned, highlight the many resources available to you. We'll get started with a little bit of background as to why do we need paid family leave. For too long, employees have struggled to maintain their jobs when they need to care for a loved one during a specific time of need, whether that's welcoming a new baby, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, or dealing with family pressures when a loved one is deployed abroad on active military service. More recently, many employees have been challenged by having to quarantine due to COVID-19 or to care for a minor dependent child who is subject to a mandatory quarantine or an order of isolation. Employees in these situations face the stress of losing income when they need to take time off to help their family and fear that their job may be gone when the family situation is over. In response to these needs, New York took action. In April of 2016, New York's paid family leave, the nation's strongest and most comprehensive paid family leave policy, was signed into law. Paid family leave is employee-funded insurance that helps employees be there for their family when they're most needed. Because of paid family leave, workers across New York no longer have to choose between caring for their loved ones and their jobs, as we now have employee-paid insurance to help in these critical times. Paid family leave provides job-protected paid time off so you can bond with a newly born, adopted, or foster child, care for a family member with a serious health condition, or assist loved ones when a family member is deployed abroad on active military service. Under legislation signed into law in March of 2020, paid family leave also provides paid time off and job protection so employees can care for themselves or their minor dependent child when under a mandatory order of quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. And we will go into more detail on this later in the presentation, as the use for this is a bit different than the others. In addition to paid time off, New York's paid family leave also has strong employee protections. You are guaranteed to return to the same or a comparable job after taking paid family leave. Comparable job is defined as a position with comparable employment benefits, pay, and other terms and conditions of employment. You are guaranteed continuation of health insurance while out on paid family leave on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue paying your portion of the premium while on leave. You are also guaranteed protection from discrimination and retaliation. Requesting or taking paid family leave cannot be held against you. Now let's take a closer look at the 3 basic uses of paid family leave. We'll start with bonding with a child. Paid family leave provides both parents time to bond with a new child within the first 12 months of the birth, adoption, or foster placement of the child. Parents who work for different employers can take paid family leave at the same time to bond with the same child. Parents who work for the same employer can take it at the same time unless their employer prohibits it. In that case, they can take leave separately over the first 12 months following the child's birth, adoption, or foster placement. It is important to note that expectant parents cannot take paid family leave for their own pregnancy. They can take it after the baby is born because paid family leave is used to care for someone else. A parent may be able to take paid family leave before the actual adoption or placement of a child if an absence from work is required for the adoption or placement to be finalized. Paid family leave is also available for employees to care for a spouse, domestic partner, child or stepchild, sibling, parent or step-parent, parent-in-law, grandparent, or a grandchild who has a serious health condition. A few other important notes for this. Domestic partner is defined broadly under the paid family leave law. It includes people who are not related by blood in a manner that would bar marriage in New York State and are dependent on one another for support. So, for example, an employee may be able to prove that they are in a domestic partnership by showing that they own property together or if they have children in common. A legal relationship is not necessary. Also, it doesn't matter if these family members live outside of New York or even outside of the country. Employees can take paid family leave to care for their family member as long as they are within close and continuing proximity, or in other words, present at the same location as the family member they're caring for during most of the paid family leave period. This may include necessary physical care, emotional support, visitation, assistance in treatment, transportation, arranging for a change in care, assistance with essential daily living matters, and personal attendance services. In order to take this type of leave, your family member must have a serious health condition. Serious health condition is defined as an illness, injury, or condition that requires either inpatient care in a hospital, hospice, or residential facility, or continuing treatment or supervision by a healthcare provider. So here are some examples of other conditions that may qualify as a serious health condition. Maybe you need 1 or more full days to care for your mom while she undergoes chemotherapy, or your spouse or domestic partner had surgery and needs help recuperating at home, or if your child is undergoing treatment for addiction and cannot attend school for a period of time. These are situations that may qualify for paid family leave and may be certified by the healthcare provider if they believe the condition constitutes as a serious health condition. The insurance carrier will make the final determination as to whether such conditions qualify for paid family leave. Since February of 2019, paid family leave also explicitly includes support for organ donors. Former Governor Cuomo signed legislation to expand the paid family leave law's definition of serious health condition to explicitly include preparation for and recovery from surgery related to organ or tissue donation, ensuring those who donate can be cared for by their eligible family members under New York's paid family leave. Non-serious medical conditions, such as the common cold or flu, routine dental work, or cosmetic treatments, are generally not included. However, if medical complications arise and your family member then meets the guidelines for a serious health condition, you may be eligible to take paid family leave. The third type of leave is for assisting during a military deployment. Paid family leave benefits are available when a family member is deployed abroad on active military service or who has been notified of an impending call or order of active service abroad and assistance is needed. Reasons for paid family leave for active service deployment are the same as the military provisions of the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, which is also known as FMLA. They cover the employee's spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent. There are several instances where paid family leave will help, as you can see here on your screen. And also, as we mentioned, there are also 2 uses of paid family leave related to COVID-19, but we will get to those in a few minutes. For now, though, we want to look at the program benefits and contributions. Eligible employees are able to take up to 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of their average weekly wage, capped at 67% of the New York State average weekly wage. An employee's average weekly wage is based on their last 8 weeks of pay prior to taking paid family leave. For 2023, the New York State average weekly wage is $1,688.19. That means that the maximum weekly benefit for 2023 is $1,131.08. This is $62.72 more than the maximum weekly benefit from 2022. It is important to note that employees can take this paid time off all at once or intermittently, but it must be taken in full day increments. To estimate your wage benefit, you can use our 2023 calculator, which is on the Paid Family Leave website. You can see the link right there on your screen. Now, paid family leave is fully funded through employee contributions. Contribution rate is reviewed annually and is subject to change by the New York State Department of Financial Services. In 2023, the payroll contribution is 0.455% of an employee's gross wages each pay period. The maximum annual contribution is $399.43. This is $24.28 less than 2022. Employees earning less than the current New York State average weekly wage of $1,688.19 will contribute less than the annual cap of $399.43, consistent with their actual wages. And we also have a deduction calculator to estimate your deductions. Again, that link is right there on your screen. So to summarize the benefits and contributions for 2023, the maximum weekly benefit was increased from $1,068.36 to $1,131.08. Also, since January 1st of 2023, employers deduct at the rate of 0.455% of an employee's gross wages each pay period, but capped at an annual maximum of $399.43. Now, the New York State Department of Financial Services did recently announce paid family leave updates for 2024, and we are very excited to announce some good news for everybody. Beginning on January 1st of 2024, the maximum weekly benefit will increase again from $1,131.08 to $1,151.16. Meanwhile, employee payroll contribution rate will be decreasing to 0.373% of an employee's gross wages each pay period, capped at an annual maximum of $333.25. And again, if you earn less than the New York State average weekly wage, which for 2024 will be $1,718.15, your annual contribution will be less than the cap. So now that we've covered the types of leave, the benefits, and the costs, let's take a minute to discuss who's covered and eligible for paid family leave. Most employees who work for private employers in New York State are covered under paid family leave. If you work for a public employer, your employer may opt into the program. If you're a public employee represented by a union, you may be covered if paid family leave is collectively bargained. For covered employees, eligibility for taking paid family leave depends on meeting specific requirements for the amount of time employees have worked for their employer. Full-time employees, including domestic workers, who regularly work 20 or more hours per week, are eligible for paid family leave after 26 consecutive weeks of employment with the same employer. Part-time employees, who work a regular schedule of less than 20 hours per week, are eligible after working 175 days, which do not need to be consecutive. Citizenship or immigration status is not a factor in determining eligibility. Paid family leave coverage is not optional for eligible employees. You can waive coverage if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, but won't be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks, or if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week and won't work 175 days in a 52-week period. Seasonal workers are a good example of this since they may work full-time, but only for a few months out of the year. If you meet the criteria for waiving coverage, your employer must provide you with a waiver form, which is also available on the Paid Family Leave website. If you waive coverage, you will not make contributions and you will not be eligible for paid family leave benefits. And employers should keep a copy of your waiver on file. If your schedule changes so that you no longer qualify for a waiver, your waiver will automatically be revoked within 8 weeks of the schedule change. You can also voluntarily revoke a waiver at any time. If your waiver is revoked, your employer will begin taking paid family leave contributions and collect any retroactive amounts due. Now we'll cover how to request paid family leave when you need it, as well as how disputes and discrimination issues will be handled. If you're an eligible employee, the maximum benefit is available to you once every 52 weeks. When you're ready to request leave, there are 3 basic steps. Step 1 is to notify your employer at least 30 days before the start of your leave if it's foreseeable, or as soon as possible. Step 2 is to complete the request forms. Step 3 is to send all the required forms to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier must pay or deny your request within 18 calendar days of receiving the completed request or the first day of leave, whichever is later. You must submit your completed request package to your employer's insurance carrier within 30 days after the start of your leave to avoid losing benefits. You can get paid family leave request forms from your employer, your employer's insurance carrier, or directly from the Paid Family Leave website at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/forms. If for some reason your paid family leave request is denied, or you have another claim-related dispute, such as the amount of benefits or the timeliness of a carrier's decision, you may request to have the denial reviewed by a neutral arbitrator. Your insurance carrier, or your employer if they're self-insured, will notify you of the reason for denial and provide you with information about requesting arbitration. Arbitration for paid family leave is handled by NAM, National Arbitration and Mediation, and more information can be found on their website. You can see that link there on your screen. As mentioned earlier, your employer may not discriminate against you for requesting or taking paid family leave, and you are guaranteed job protection with the same or a comparable job upon return from paid family leave. If your employer does not return you to your same or a comparable job, terminates you, reduces your pay and or your benefits, or disciplines you in any way as a result of you requesting or taking paid family leave, you can file a discrimination claim with the Workers' Compensation Board. An administrative law judge may order an employer to reinstate an employee, pay any lost wages, pay attorney's fees, and pay up to $500 in penalties. The process and forms are available at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, or you can call the Paid Family Leave Helpline for assistance at 844-337-6303. We are frequently asked about these similarities and differences between paid family leave and FMLA, so we're going to take a minute now to go over those. There are several similarities between New York's paid family leave and the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. Both provide leave for bonding with a child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, and assisting when a family member is deployed on active military service abroad. You are also guaranteed that you will return to the same or a comparable position and that your health insurance will continue on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue to pay your portion of the premium cost while on leave. However, there are several key differences. First off, paid family leave is paid. FMLA is not paid. Almost all private employers will carry PFL insurance. FMLA does not include insurance, and it has a 50 employee threshold for eligibility. The length of time you must work is also different. For PFL, if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, you must be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks for that employer. And if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week, you must work 175 days for that employer, which do not need to be consecutive. For FMLA, you must have worked a full year and 1,250 hours in the last 52 weeks to qualify. The biggest distinction may be that under New York's paid family leave, you are taking leave to care for someone else, not for your own health condition. FMLA, on the other hand, does allow you to take leave for your own health condition. PFL is only taken in full day increments, whereas FMLA may be taken hourly. And lastly, under PFL, you do not need to use other paid time off first. As we mentioned earlier, there are 2 additional uses of paid family leave that took effect under emergency legislation in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So though the pandemic state of emergency has ended, the legislation cited no end date. So these laws are still in effect, so we want to make you aware of them. Depending on the size of your employer, the legislation provides benefits for either paid sick leave or a combination of New York paid family leave and disability benefits if you are under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. This is the only time you may receive paid family leave and disability benefits at the same time. This also gives you access to paid family leave if your minor dependent child is under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19, up to a maximum weekly benefit of $840.70. More detailed information about taking paid family leave for your quarantine or your child's can be found at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/COVID-19. There you'll also find information about New York State's COVID-19 paid sick leave requirements, FAQs, application forms, and more. So as you think about how paid family leave may be able to help you and your family, there are resources to assist you. Complete details on paid family leave are available at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, along with other resources, including paid family leave request forms and fact sheets, weekly deduction and benefit calculators, and information about COVID-19 quarantine leave benefits. You can also contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. If you are not already subscribed for email updates on paid family leave, you can subscribe by clicking the Get Updates button on the bottom of the Paid Family Leave pflymd.ny.gov homepage. So we hope you found this presentation helpful. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss New York's landmark paid family leave benefit with you. At this time, we are going to take your questions. Again, feel free to enter your questions in the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. If you don't see it, there should be a little chat bubble. You can click on that and the box will pop right up. Please keep in mind that the board is unable to provide legal advice, which includes guidance about what you should do in specific situations. If you have specific questions or concerns about a request for paid family leave, you should contact your disability and paid family leave insurance carrier, as they are the entity that makes the decision to pay or deny benefits. I also mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I want to reiterate again, if you have a question that you'd like to discuss further with us, feel free to leave your name and email or a contact number that we can reach you at so we can discuss further. But again, at this time, we are going to take any questions you have. I see a couple questions have come in the chat box. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, let her take a look at everything that's come in, and we will be back with you shortly. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Adam. The first question I see here, someone left their email and asked to connect with someone. So we will send you an email at some point after the presentation, but I just want to reiterate that the website that Adam has on the screen, the paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, is a great resource. It has all the forms, it has fact sheets, it has kind of step-by-step instructions on the application process. So that is a great resource, and I highly recommend looking at it because almost everything, possibly everything that you need to know about paid family leave is on that website, but we will also send you an email as well. I just wanted to kind of make that pitch for the website. Okay, next question here is, can someone take leave if they have been on leave for another reason for over 3 months and have not returned to work? So this is kind of a very fact-specific question. It's possible that someone was on FMLA for their own serious health condition, and then they have a qualifying event for PFL after that, and they may be eligible. A day of paid family leave is defined in the regulations as any full day that the employee was prevented from performing work for the covered employer because they use paid family leave. So if they're on an unpaid leave and that leave is extending several months and they're still on the unpaid leave, they may not be eligible to take paid family leave during that unpaid leave. If they come back and have a qualifying event, then maybe they can take it, but this is a very fact-specific question. And because I can't make eligibility determinations, I'm not going to be able to say yes or no, you can take leave. But generally speaking, if you are out on an unpaid leave for like a specified period of time, you can't take PFL during that time because you're not prevented from performing work because of paid family leave. You're already out. You're not working, so you're not needing paid family leave, and it doesn't meet the definition of a day of paid family leave in the regs. Okay, next question here is caring for an elderly parent eligible for family leave? So family care PFL is available for an employee to take for a family member with a serious health condition. So aging on its own is likely not going to meet the definition of serious health condition, but if there is something that rises to the level of a serious health condition, then possibly, the employee could take leave for that. And the definition of providing care, if an employee's family member does have a serious health condition, is quite broad. So visitation, arranging care, transporting them to appointments, things like that are all included in the definition of providing care. But the prerequisite to taking family care, they have to have a serious health condition. Okay, next question here is, my baby's due date is in mid-February, but the birth itself can be unpredictable. How do I go about verifying the arrival of the baby so that I can start receiving benefits once I give birth? So this is a good question. It takes some time to get the birth certificate. For some people, that's not a problem. Maybe they're taking disability first and then they're going to take paid family leave, so getting the birth certificate is no problem. If you don't have the birth certificate, you can have a letter from your healthcare provider indicating employee's name, gave birth on X date to the baby, whatever. If you look at the PFL forms, there is kind of a hierarchy of forms of what you can include, and it gives you details about what those documentation has to say. But you're not limited to, you don't have to wait for the birth certificate. You are eligible for PFL, assuming you're otherwise eligible, bonding leave can be taken and completed at any time within the first 12 months following the child's birth. You may just have to get a letter from the healthcare provider indicating that you've given birth. Okay, next question here is asking if you give birth before the 56 weeks is completed, can you take PFL? I think that you meant to say 26 weeks, so the eligibility. So I'm going to answer it that way, but please feel free to correct me if you're asking something else. But if you're talking about what happens if you give birth before you're actually eligible to take PFL, you're not going to be eligible to take PFL at the baby's birth. But if you continue gaining eligibility, like I was just talking about, bonding leave can be taken and completed at any time within the 12 months following the child's birth or placement for adoption or foster care. So just because you gave birth before you were eligible for PFL does not mean that you're missing out on PFL. You just may have to take it a little bit later. Okay, next question here is, does the person taking the leave keep and pay for their own health insurance the same way they do with their usual paycheck? So this is something that is not explicitly addressed in the PFL law and regulations because a lot of employers do this in different ways. So what the law says is that you are entitled to keep your health insurance on the same terms as if you had continued to work. So if you usually contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you're going to be required to contribute to the cost of your health insurance while you're on PFL. I think a lot of employers just take, the employee will pay the employer and then they'll keep paying the premium. Different employers may do it different ways, so you're going to want to talk to your employer. Like if you usually contribute to the cost of health insurance, you should discuss with your employer how you're going to continue doing that while on PFL, but you are entitled to keep your insurance on those same terms. Okay, next question here is, I don't understand the interplay with disability and PFL for pregnancy. So PFL is not available for pregnancy. You cannot take PFL while you're pregnant. PFL does not provide any benefits for someone while they're pregnant. What it does do is provide bonding leave. So that's to bond with the employee's child during the first 12 months following the child's birth or placement for adoption or foster care. So after the child is born or placed with you, if you're otherwise eligible for PFL, you can take bonding leave. Disability, on the other hand, are benefits that are available to the employee for an off-the-job injury or illness. And pregnancy is included in the definition of disability. So for normal uncomplicated deliveries, it's going to be 6 weeks following vaginal delivery, 8 weeks following a cesarean section. So that's kind of the general disability after giving birth. That's the definition of disability generally. There's also, if you have complications, like if you're on bed rest and have some kind of medical issue before you give birth, it's possible that you would qualify for disability in that case. But disability is not available. PFL is not available while you're pregnant. Disability would be if you have a disability related to pregnancy and or after you deliver a baby. Disability is the benefit that you may be eligible for. PFL is to actually bond with the child after you give birth or they're placed with you. The next question here is, can the employer require employees to use PTO to help provide financial assistance until PFL is approved because waiting can impose a financial hardship? So employers cannot require employees to use PTO. They can allow the employee to use PTO. So for example, if the employee wants to use their PTO to top up, we call it. So the benefit amount is 67%. If the employer wants to allow the employee, they can use kind of the 33% PTO to make up the difference. But the employer cannot force the employee to use accruals during paid family leave. So generally it's up to you. If you want to do that and your employer allows you to, then you can do that. And a lot of employers do that. Okay, next question here is, I have been advised by attorneys that PFL and FMLA run concurrently. Is this accurate? So the law does allow employers to require FMLA and PFL to run concurrently. So generally speaking, yes, they are going to run concurrently. A caveat to that is it's available FMLA and PFL for the same qualifying event. So if you don't have any FMLA available to you, it does not mean that you're not eligible for PFL. If you have, for example, bonding leave is something that's covered for both FMLA and PFL. If you are eligible for both and you're taking leave that qualifies for both, yes, they can require you to take FMLA and PFL at the same time. An employer could let you take them separately, but the default is that they are going to run at the same time. Okay, next question here is, can the father and mother of a newborn who work for different employers take PFL at the same time? And the answer is, if they are both eligible, yes. There's nothing in the law or regulations that says if parent A and parent B work for different employers, if they have a baby and they are both going to be home at the same time, they can't take it at the same time. They have to stack their leaves. No, there's nothing in the PFL law or regulations requiring employees who work for different employers to take it at different times. They can take it at the same time if they are eligible. Okay, I see a follow-up question here about what is considered a serious health condition for an elderly parent. So this is a very fact-specific determination, and because I can't give legal advice, I can't give an example of what could be a serious health condition. But on the website, there's a lot of guidance about what is considered a serious health condition. If you want to drop your email in the chat also, once we kind of compile all the questions and get back to everyone, I can also email you the definition of serious health conditions, so you can kind of look and see if there's anything that qualifies for you. So if you want to just drop your email, we can send you the full definition so you can review it. Okay, next question here is, what is the very first step to take to apply for PFL? So generally, giving your employer notice is going to be probably the first step that you take to apply for PFL. You are required to give your employer at least 30 days notice of foreseeable leave. So that's something that is foreseeable. So the planned birth of a baby, something like that, a planned surgery, and you know you're going to have to care for someone after the surgery, something like that. If it is foreseeable, you have to give your employer at least 30 days notice. If it's not foreseeable, so like an emergency, there was a car accident or something like that, and then someone has a serious health condition and you need to take leave to care for them, you have to give your employer as much notice as possible before the leave. So that's generally going to be your first step, is giving your employer notice. Okay, next question here is, are taxes taken out of the weekly benefit amount, or are we expected to pay taxes later on PFL benefits? So the board does not have jurisdiction over tax matters, but the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance did issue a notice about this back when PFL was first launching, and it's notice N-1712. And on that notice, it does say that benefits paid to employees is taxable non-wage income that must be included in your federal gross income. If you have other questions about tax or about that statement or about the notice, which again is N-1712, you would need to contact the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, because we do not have jurisdiction over tax matters. Okay, next question here is, does taking PFL days intermittently mean that one can go to work and then take a day if needed, for example, to take a person to a doctor appointment? And yes, that is the intended use of intermittent PFL. It's something less than weekly. So you can take it either continuously in weekly blocks or intermittently, which is increments of one full day. So for example, if you had someone who had a serious health condition and they needed to go to chemotherapy or something like that, and they needed a ride and you were staying with them and caring for them, but it's only every Monday or something like that, and so you're taking paid family leave every Monday, that would be an example of intermittent PFL. Okay, next question here is, can you please explain the waiver qualifications? So only 2 categories of employees qualify for waivers. So these are employees who regularly work 20 or more hours per week, but they won't be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks. So that would be someone like a seasonal worker or something like that. The other category is employees who regularly work less than 20 hours per week, but they won't work 175 days in a year. So for example, somebody works once a week, like a 4-hour shift once a week or something like that, they would qualify for a waiver as well. What about if they're working for the same employer? Can people take PFL at the same time? So if we're talking about 2 employees who are qualified for the same qualifying event, so for example, 2 parents work for the same employer and they want to take bonding leave for the same baby at the same time, and they work for the same employer. The employer does not have to let both employees take PFL at the same time. They can't say you can't take PFL, period, but they can require them to take them at different times. So parent A takes 12 weeks and then parent B takes 12 weeks, or they switch, something like that. The employer doesn't have to allow 2 employees to take leave for the same qualifying event at the same time if they work for the same employer.
All right, thanks, Courtney. And we did not have any other questions come in, so I think it's okay to go ahead and wrap up a little early today. Want to thank you all for joining us. We always appreciate the participation. I want to thank Courtney for always taking the time to answer questions. She does a great job as usual. Just a reminder, you can sign up to receive paid family leave news, including information on future webinars, straight to your inbox. Just go to paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, select Get Updates, and you will be signed up for our emails, which includes, again, a notification of when these resources will be available. As I mentioned earlier, we do also distribute information via social media. I mentioned the YouTube page, but we also post stuff on Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're following us there as well. And before we sign off today, I just want to let you know you will be directed to take a survey. Just lets us know how we're doing with these webinars, ways we can improve. We always appreciate you taking a couple minutes to provide feedback for that. And with that, we are going to sign off. I want to thank you all again. Thank you to Courtney for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.